Stefon Diggs coming over from the Vikings last year in that trade, having really a season that even the folks saying that he was going to do well in this offense, I don't think they even projected him to do this well. Finishing as wide receiver number 3, 127 receptions, 166 targets, 1,535 yards, 8 touchdowns, had over a 29% target share out there in Buffalo. Guys, your thoughts on Stefon Diggs?
That target share is the stuff that wide receiver 1 wet dreams are made of, right? Like, that's what you want to see when your quarterback's dropping back and they don't have a running game, as we just said. Like, I want the guy who's going to be the focal point of their passing attack, and that is clearly Stefon Diggs. The one thing that I would like to see improve is I'd like him to be able to find a way to fall into the end zone a little bit more, but I think 8-9 touchdowns is probably about his cap. Not only the way that the team is built, but how they're utilizing Diggs, and he does a little bit of run after the catch, but a lot of his stuff was deep outs or deep ins, right? And it wasn't a whole lot of yak. He just had the air yards behind it, which really helps. So don't get me wrong, it all adds up, but the only downfall is I'd love to see him get double-digit touchdowns and kind of step up to that Devontae Adams level or DeAndre Hopkins level of, annual touchdown expectations. But I think 8 or 9 is pretty well it. So it's the one reservation for me. But outside of that, if you're drafting him as your wide receiver 1, you can be confident in that.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a guy who needed a change of scenery, and it was a good move for all parties, I think, when that happened, that Stefon Diggs got out of Minnesota, went to Buffalo. A little foreshadowing to what we have coming up later in the show. I have Stefon Diggs as wide receiver 2 this year. I don't see the drop-off in production. As long as Josh Allen is his quarterback, Stefon Diggs is going to be a force to be reckoned with in this league. Because they have such great chemistry. Allen is looking for him, which is great. You mentioned the targets and Diggs obviously showed that he could be a wide receiver 1, even in an offense in Minnesota that had a 1,000-yard receiver opposite of him. And I would say a downgrade in quarterback, at least throwing the deep ball, which is what Stefon Diggs really thrives in. So he gets the upgrade in the quarterback that's not afraid to throw the deep ball over there in Buffalo, and a guy that is looking his direction. So I like Stefon Diggs. I have a feeling that there would be a lot of times where I wouldn't be in a position to grab him. But if I ever did, I would hit draft and move on.
Yeah, I completely agree with Alex. A lot of times in my draft style, especially in redraft, he's not there when I want to draft a wide receiver. But if that was my style, I'd be hitting that smash all day long. And anyone that has him outside their top 5 in redraft rankings is absolutely crazy, in my opinion, which we will talk about later. But it's just, yes, the opportunity's there. I want to touch on one thing that Kevin said about the touchdown situation. I think that's part of the reason I think that, and I agree with him. I agree with Kevin that I would like to see a little bit more than 10, 11 touchdowns a year. But part of the problem is when you get tackled inside the 5-yard line, they're going to hand the ball out. They're just going to give the ball to Josh and let it go. Where some of the other wide receivers are getting targeted from the 5 in the end zone, like Devontae and D-Hop and guys like that. Once it gets to the 3, 4, 5-yard line, they're not even throwing the ball. And that's the issue.
Yeah, you're not kidding, because when you look at it last year, he had 3 targets inside the 5 zone, right? You expand that out to the 10 zone, 6 targets there, and really only saw an additional target from the red zone in, so the 20-yard line and in. And all those touchdowns came from longer touchdowns when they got into the red zone there. But part of the reason, right, like, raised my hand on your crazy for your take there. 37.5% of Stefon Diggs' touchdowns last year came on one game, right? He had 8 touchdowns, 3 of them coming in week 16, where he finished as the wide receiver number 2 overall in the week. Now, it was one of those that he definitely got better as the season rolled along and as that chemistry developed with Josh Allen, and you saw a lot of that come come to fruition over the back half there. But for a guy that to be up there in that elite level of wide receiver, that top 5 or better, I see him needing to get into 10 plus touchdowns on that, and I don't see that happening this year. Is part of the reason that he fell down below that ranking for me. I definitely see him as a top 10 guy. I don't necessarily see him as a top 5 guy.